explained in the conference was that privacy, although it's key to certain social groups, and certainly for institutions such as the Commission and legislative bodies, I'm not so sure, and I haven't seen a lot of evidence that the European citizen regards this as a prime driver when acquiring software or when acquiring tools. So what you see in practice is that people will tend to buy latest technology irrespective of the way in which privacy and trust and security is implemented, and then they will tend to think of this afterwards, if indeed they think of it at all, because what of course they want is functionality, they want mobility, they want to have the kind of things that can support them in a mobile life. And ironically enough, the tendency is for people to want to share as much data as possible, and that goes very far I think with the European citizen, rather than to hold it back and to consider, as you would do in a life which was not electronic, to say this is reasonable to share and this is not reasonable to share. One example I often give in conferences, and I think this is still very true, is that if someone were come up and approach you on the street and start asking you for personal information, well, your gut reaction would be probably to say, hold on, what do you want this information for? You'd ask for some kind of explanation first, you wouldn't just give it out. It's interesting to see the way people behave on the web, because here it's quite the contrary, that people seem willing to share quite intimate information without any thought on who they're sharing it with and what they're sharing it for. And this is a bit worrying in some senses, because it shows that life in the electronic world has not adapted to the same level of sophistication as life in the real world. One of the ways you can think about this is in terms of intuitive risk models. So, in the days that the automobile came out, the risk model was that someone walked in front of the automobile with a red flag, and that everyone was warned that there was a danger. Of course, you could never apply such a model nowadays; it would be ridiculous. Well, I think in some ways in the electronic world, we're still a bit at this stage where we rely too much on procedures, on software, on rule sets, whereas people need to learn a more intuitive risk model on how to behave correctly in the electronic world. So rather than having some screen that comes up and says, do you allow your data to be published according to these conditions, and then to receive this big 40-page document, it should be more in the line that people look for clues about the way that the system is interacting with them, and then can make decisions on what they will release and what they won't release, much as they would do in everyday life. And this is much more of a conversation-oriented way of doing things. But I think the idea that you can put privacy totally in software design is incorrect. I think you need to have software which is designed to be able to deal with privacy concepts, but you cannot, I think, define or design a system that will enable the user to cop out and say the system will do it for me. This doesn't make any sense. It's a thing where people need to make decisions for themselves, and it comes again back to this intuitive risk model, isn't it?